Hi, welcome to week 6, where we're going to continue our work on METs, muscle energy techniques, and in particular we're going to be looking at the lats and then some work around spine mobility as well. If you can't remember what METs are, or you haven't had a chance to do video 5, I'll do a very quick recap here, but I went into quite a lot of detail in video 5, so that's probably a great place to go back and check out the first sort of 5 minutes or so of that for a full explanation. But in essence, an MET is a stretch which we do after contraction of a muscle. We contract in what's known as an isometric contraction. That's where we don't see a change in length of the muscle and we don't see movement in the joint during the contraction phase. We hold that for about 8 seconds, and then after a deep breath in, we exhale, relax the stretch, relax the contraction, and then apply the stretch. And what we're doing there is we're utilizing this brief period of time when the nervous system is a bit more relaxed and is letting you stretch a little bit further, or at least that's what we think is happening from the best of our understanding of the science. So let's crack on. As I say, today we're going to focus on the lats in particular. So those are your big muscles down the side. They come from your shoulder, they come down and they attach into your lower back, and is the muscle that you would be predominantly working when in the gym you're doing something called a lat pull down, where you've got the bar above your head and you're pulling your elbows down towards your sides. That is all lats. So how do we take knowing how we activate our lats? How do we then add that into an MET type stretch? So first of all, while standing, what we're going to do is we're going to be aiming to create a little bit of openness through the side of our body. Okay, so we're going to end up with a little bit of a tilt and taking our arm over the top. We're then ultimately going to be trying to pull down for our isometric hold. Okay, so we're going to be wanting to do that lats pull down type move, but where we're trying to bring our elbow down towards our hip in a bit of an arc, but we want something to resist us. So I'm going to use the bar. You can use the top of a door frame, you can use a door handle. You'll see in a moment that you can actually arrange yourself however you like. If you want, if you've got, say, like a pull-up bar or particularly sturdy curtain rail, although I'll leave that one to you. You could also use a belt or a strap. Okay, so I'm going to use the bar. I'll then demonstrate the same thing with the strap, and then we'll have a look at seated. So I'm going to get myself in a position where I'm nice and stretched through the length of my body, through my lats. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to sort of curve myself. Think a bit of a banana. I'm going to give myself a nice curve. Okay, so I'm now in a nice curve. I'm now going to try and pull my elbow down towards my hip. So I'm engaging my lats. Count 8, deep breath in, exhale, and then sink further into the stretch. As I say, this stretch you'll feel from your shoulder, down the outside of your ribs, rolling round onto your back and coming down towards your lower back. So again, I'm contracting, I'm drawing an imaginary arc from elbow to hip. Deep breath in. And exhale. And then just lean into that nice banana shape. One more time. Lovely. That is a really, really nice stretch to do if you can find something to hold on to, as I say, like a bar or like a door frame, or you can even, if you're doing, imagine this is a door and we don't have any bars. Sometimes what I would do with the door frame is I might hold through the door frame, and again I can achieve exactly the same movement. If you happen to have something you can fix a strap to, ideally probably I'd use a belt or at least a strap that's not going to stretch particularly. I just happen to have a pull-up strap here. It is going to stretch ever so slightly, but it'll do what I need it to do. So take a good grip on the strap. Get yourself into that nice stretch. Pull, and you'll see here the strap is stretching slightly. And then as I relax, get into that nice banana shape. As with all of these, we can do this while seated. Depending on what access you have to things to hold on to, it may be easier in fact to use a door handle for something like this. And you may find that you're slightly limited in how far you can kind of create that banana because you're seated. But equally, you might actually find you can get a stretch quite quickly because you won't be accessing that kind of range that frequently. So actually this might be a very, very good stretch, albeit you won't have to move quite so far in order to achieve it. So again, comfortable position. I'm gonna, this time, rather than focusing on pushing my hip out to create the stretch, I'm actually gonna focus on pushing my shoulder towards the camera. So I'm in that position, I'm just going to rock, I'm going to move so you can hopefully see that, I'm going to push my shoulder out, create that stretch, steady myself with my second hand, pull my arm down as if I'm doing my lat pull down. And then move my shoulder to give myself a nice banana through my shoulder and achieve the stretch that way. Great, so that's the lats, and we'd obviously do that both sides. Now personally, I find that one really, really good. I enjoy that stretch, so I actually do that one quite frequently. We're going to move on now to looking at a couple of spine-related movements. These are, again, they are purely stretches. They are there to help maneuver the soft tissues and the muscles. These are not there to try and shift anything out of place in a bony way. And obviously, you know your limitations when it comes to what your back can and can't do and can't achieve. But within the realms of tissue stretching, muscle stretching, and making sure you feel a nice stretch and no pain, then these are perfectly safe to do. If you have any questions at all, always consult a doctor or a physio just to be sure, just to be safe. So first what we're going to do is we're going to look at some rotation. Left and right rotation led predominantly by the shoulders, keeping our hips forward. We only really turn our head right at the very end of rotation in order to make sure that predominantly it's coming from the main body of our spine. So how do we turn that into an MET? Well, we're going to turn to a point where we feel, yeah, that's a reasonable stretch, or I don't feel I can go much further. We're then going to try and turn back the other way, but we're going to resist it. So I'll demonstrate. Again, I'm going to use a door frame or something I can hold on to. I'm going to turn. I'm then going to try, now I'm at the end of my turn, and I've turned, trying to keep my hips straight, I've turned my shoulders predominantly and finally my head. I'm going to try and turn back the other way, but I'm going to use my arm and the door frame or the wall in order to stop that rotation, to make it an isometric rotation. So this movement is trying to come from my spine. I'm trying to rotate back again, for me, counterclockwise. I'm going to take a deep breath in, relax, and actually I can achieve more rotation. I'll counter rotate again. I'm going to perform this with my back to you so that hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I won't talk you through it, but I'll be trying to turn, in my case, probably the other way now. You'll see me try and tense, deep breath in, relax, and then increase the rotation. As you can see, I've managed to rotate quite a lot further than when I started. Some guidance for where to feel like you're trying to apply the pressure. Essentially, when you're trying to counter-rotate into that isometric hold and you're trying to resist yourself, make sure you're leading with your shoulders. So if I'm holding on to the surface, in this case the bar or maybe the door frame, I want to be trying to lead with the shoulders as opposed to lead with the hips or with the head. Okay, so here the shoulders should be doing or feel like they're leading the movements. I hope that makes sense. We're now going to just look at that from a seated position. Again, I will probably end up doing some with my back to you. Hopefully it will be clear what I'm doing. One last piece of advice in terms of the rotation is use the deep breath in just before you relax as an opportunity to feel like you're sitting up even straighter. A nice analogy is whilst you're breathing in is to imagine there's a helium balloon in the middle of your head pulling you upwards. So that means rather than holding and trying to turn in a slightly slumped position, being slightly rounded, which isn't a problem, but you'll be limited in how far you can go, try and use the deep breath in to end up nice and tall and to rotate from this nice tall posture. And that goes for whether you're standing or sitting. Great. For this final part, we're going to be looking at side bending, flexing of our spine. For this, we're going to need our heavy weight that we used for last week's shoulder raising. So again, I have my trusty kettlebell. And we're going to be using its weight as something to work against again. It's going to be our resistance against which we're going to do our isometric hold. So predominantly, we're going to be doing side flexing. So this is the I'm a little teapot type styling. And this is because we have two muscles that go from the top of our hip to our lowest rib, called the QLs. We shorten it to the QLs. And what we're going to do is we're going to do some nice side flex stretch for those. So using our weight, we're actually going to side flex over towards the side that our weight is pulling us down. We're then going to gently contract. We're going to pull up slightly so that this muscle, this side, is contracting. So we're going to contract and then we're going to hold it there. And then we're going to take a nice deep breath in. And we're going to let our weight pull us down as we also side flex a bit further. If you want to make this stretch feel more stretchy, you can take your arm over your head, like I say, I'm a little teapot style. So just show the other side. We're going to go down, lift up, hold, and relax into a stretch. Holding again. Deep breath in. And there we have it. Again, seated, we can do exactly the same, provided I don't fall off my chair. So we have our weight. We're going to lean over with our weight. We can extend our arm over, pull up against the weight, take a deep breath in, exhale and fold further. To demonstrate that on the other side, down towards the weight, pull up, take a nice deep breath in, and sink further over. So today we've covered the lats, some rotation of the spine and some flexion of the spine. Now we don't generally try too much hard work in what we call extension, leaning back, and flexion, moving forward and folding down. It's something you absolutely can work on, but if you need to work on that, I suggest that you seek a little bit more one-to-one help, because they're just exercises that need a little bit more tuition. But side flexing and rotation, it's fairly easy to guide through this kind of video. Thank you for joining me for week 6. Next week we will move on to the lower half of the body, predominantly the hips. There will be a little bit of ankle, I suspect, in week 8, but predominantly starting in the hips next week, so I'll look forward to seeing you then.